Earlier this month, the United States announced that the Syrian government had crossed what it termed a red line by allegedly using chemical weapons against rebel forces. The United States did not provide any evidence to support the claim. But now Washington and some of its allies are preparing to increase, quote, the scale and scope of their support for the Syrian opposition. But as CCTV's Sarah Barton reports, the international community is far from reaching a consensus on how to end the civil war in Syria.
More than 93,000 Syrians have died in the armed conflict between the country's government and rebel forces since March 2011. The US Secretary of State John Kerry called for an urgent political resolution to the war in Syria this week, saying that unless the bloodshed stops, the region could become engulfed in a chaotic sectarian conflict. Kerry met in Doha with 10 of his counterparts from Arab and European nations, discussing how to coordinate aid to the rebels trying to oust the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
We have decided that we have no choice in order to try to get to this negotiation, but to provide greater assistance of one kind or another, each nation making its own decision as to what it is comfortable doing, but all of them committing to do more to be able to help the Syrian opposition.
Western powers blame Assad for the deteriorating situation in Syria, claiming that government forces have used chemical weapons against militants and that Assad has recruited Iranian and Hezbollah fighters to combat alongside his own troops.
I think it is unthinkable that President Assad can play any part in the future government of his country. He has blood on his hands. He's used chemical weapons.
The United States and its allies have pressed Russia to back an international peace conference to end the bloodshed in Syria and allow the creation of a transitional government. But Russia is a key ally of the Assad government, and Russian President Vladimir Putin denies there's enough evidence to conclusively prove the alleged use of chemical weapons by Assad's forces. At the close of June's meeting of G8 nations, Russia called on the United Nations to investigate further.
The most important thing we all agreed on was that we believe the bloodshed must be stopped as soon as possible. We agreed that peace and reconciliation must come about through political actions on both sides, but we are convinced that final conclusions can only be made based on thorough checking of all available facts surrounding the use of chemical weapons. We have no facts confirming the use of such weapons by the Syrian government, and I assure you that far from every member of the G8 believes that they have been used.
Syrian rebels have welcomed the influx of direct aid from the United States and its allies, but many nations remain wary of this move, voicing concern over destabilizing Syria even further with a regional arms race that will put weapons in the hands of fundamentalist militants hostile to the West.
Providing arms to either side would not address this current situation. There is no such military solution. Only political solution can address this issue sustainably.
The date and location of the proposed international conference on Syria has yet to be announced, but it's already being called Geneva II because of a similar conference that was held there a year ago. Sarah Barton, CCTV.